Hope everyone's having a good day. I want to talk about the term or chunk paragraphs, a term that was popularized by Jane Schaefer. This is a presentation that I've adapted from the Crystal Russell presentation, and she gives credit to Jane Schaefer for talking about chunk paragraphs. I might more often use the term claim, data, warrant paragraphs because when I was a debate coach, that's what we talked about: claim, data, warrant. And long before I heard about chunk paragraphs, and I'm pretty sure it was long before I heard about claim, data, warrant paragraphs, I talked about the idea of a commentary paragraph where there was a setup sentence, there was a concrete detail, and then there was commentary about that concrete detail to explain the topic sentence or explain the setup sentence. All of them, all of them have one thing in common. All of them, I believe, are the same thing in at the crucial level, but all of them are about layers. And I'll get to that in a minute. Christopher Hitchens, who, in my opinion, is one of the greatest writers of my lifetime. His style, his ability to speak, his ability to write is amazing. Whether I agree with anything he wrote doesn't matter. Stylistically, he was a tremendous writer. And he said that when he taught, he would tell his students that anybody who can talk, who can speak, can also write. But the trick is to learn to talk in an engaging, informative way. And I believe what Hitchens did when he spoke, and I believe what Hitchens did when he wrote, was an elevated form of the claim data warrant method. As I said earlier, the chunk is layers. Layer one is the claim. It's going to be a topic sentence most of the time. Then there is data, a concrete detail, an piece of evidence, whatever you want to call it, that's next. And then the crucial thing for you as a writer, the thing that makes the point, that makes it interesting, that makes you look well informed, and that helps you, for lack of a better phrase, tell the story that you need to tell. To speak, to write in an engaging way is the commentary, the warrant, the explanation. And sometimes you're going to have to, for lack of a better phrase, warrant the warrants. And sometimes it's going to take more than one chunk of data. So when I talk about the chunk being layers, you may have 2, 3, 4 paragraphs in an essay to make the claim, to make the support, but they're basically going to be following this pattern. One topic sentence is going to be the big claim, followed by some data and some warrants. There'll be a transition with more data and more warrants, and then there'll be a conclusion to clinch everything up. So if we're dealing with one paragraph and we are being chunky, you got a claim, you've got a data, you've got a warrant. It's supposed to be smooth with chunks in it, for lack of a better word. And perhaps this slide's a bit redundant, but remember, you're looking at all of this. I should also explain that the people who talk about the chunk paragraph are big on color coding, and it might be something you want to think about as you're revising. Can I highlight everything that's data? Can I highlight everything that's a warrant? Put it in different colors and see if I actually have warrants for all my data. Let's talk about the claim first. It's usually in the first sentence in a body paragraph. As I said earlier, there will be times when you have layers in your paper And as I've said in class, 5 is not a magic number. And there may be times it takes 2 or 3 paragraphs to develop a single claim. But that claim is usually the first sentence in the body paragraph. It's usually going to be known as the topic sentence. It is the subject of the paragraph. It is something that you can link back directly to your thesis. And I can't stress this enough. Your claims need to be something you can link back to your thesis. The topic sentences of the paragraphs or of the groups of paragraphs that develop one claim all need to be things you can link back to your thesis. They're going to express the main idea of the paragraph or the main idea of this block of paragraphs that you're going to have. Because let me emphasize again, 5 is not a magic number. It may take 2 paragraphs. It may take lots of data with lots of commentary or warrants to develop your main idea. And as I said before, it's oftentimes known as the topic sentence. Your data or your concrete details. They follow the claim. They are the proof. They are the proof that supports the claim in that topic sentence. The data should be concrete. It should be things that you can reach out and touch. It should be things that you can double check, triple check. It should not be supposition. It should not be a big, huge theory. It should be things that are concrete. You can paraphrase something in your own words. Just give credit to the original so people can double check. It can be a direct quotation. It can be examples. It can be stats. So let's take a look at how some of this can get put together. There's a transition. I want to move from point A to point B, and sometimes it's impossible to do that. Sentence, sentence, sentence. He said, he said, he said, he said. Further, when Marvel Comics' version of Thor receives Mjolnir, Odin specifically tells him. Now I've got a lead-in phrase, I've got the context. You can wield this hammer only if you continue to prove yourself worthy. I have data, I have a direct quotation. And I'm going to give the citation. I'm the one who said it on page 39 of a book I've never written. The crux of your paper, and I think it's going to be the crux of a comparison contrast paper, it's going to be the crux of the summary response paper, it is going to be the crux of every paper, are the warrants or the commentary. How do I get from the data to the claim? How do I link these two things together? That's the interesting part. That's the part that produces the argument. Remember, every thesis statement is an argument. Every essay is an argument, even if it's only to assert I'm worth reading. How do I get from the data to the claim? So, think about, can I say something original about the quotation or the concrete details? Can I move away from the obvious? And look, I don't think you should tell your reader that he's stupid or she's stupid. But I do think everyone has an insight into something that the reader may not have already figured out. Explain that to the reader so that we can make the connection. Everybody gets to make connections that other people can't. All of you have different experiences than I do. All of you have different experiences from each other. Think about how you can tell those people with experiences other than yours how you got to the conclusion you got to from the data and how the data supports the claim you have made. When you write the warrants, it's okay, like with the thesis, to begin with a phrase that you're going to cut out in the final draft. This shows that. Whatever comes after the that should be in the final draft. This shows that. Try to eliminate. This also shows that. You're going to have 2 or 3 pieces of commentary. Make sure you let your reader know that this is a different piece of warrant than the previous one. But again, work to get rid of it. This is important. If it says important, hopefully the reader will stop and pay attention. Again, this is important because get rid of it in the final draft, but use it to give yourself a reason to help create the warrant. This reveals that. Again, you're telling the reader how the two things combine, but try to get rid of the phrasing, this reveals that, and go with what comes afterwards in the final draft. This implies, and I haven't said it enough, I'm going to put it on screen for you. Work to remove, this shows that. This also shows that. This is important because. This reveals that. This implies, all sorts of phrases like that. Work to remove them from the final draft. I think there are some common errors. 1, that data is used as a warrant. 2, the warrant doesn't relate to the claim. And 3, the warrants contradict the claim. Those, I think, are fairly obvious, especially the last one. I think the middle one as well are fairly obvious, and a simple rereading of the final copy before you submit it should help you catch those and fix it. The data used as a warrant, remember, facts don't always speak for themselves. Facts have to be given a context, and facts have to be explained to a reader. Make sure you can do things to make the reader care. There are a few other common warrant mistakes. It repeats itself. They are in danger. They are not safe. If you look at the example, Thor risks his life for Asgard. If he's risking his life, he is in danger. He is not safe. But let's go on to why does the fact that he risks his life matter? He believes he has a duty. And to go back to our topic sentence, if he risks his life, perhaps he is showing that he is worthy. If he is fulfilling his duty to defend the realm, perhaps he is showing he is worthy. Avoid being generic. Loki is mean. I think we can move beyond second grade, third grade language. Loki uses psychological torture to gain vengeance. That's a little bit stronger than mean. It's a warrant. It shows why Thor's life might be at risk because he's being psychologically tortured. It shows why he's defending the realm because Loki is using psychological torture. It ties things together to keep us thinking about why Thor is worthy to hold the hammer. Work to flesh out the warrants. Let's talk about the important stuff, although Thor is really important too. Baseball. Shohei Ohtani is a great baseball player. That's a claim. I've got some data. He won the MVP last season. I believe that should be the 2021 season. During the 2022 season, he became the first player to hit 30 home runs and win 10 games as a pitcher in a single season. That's data. Going down to what's crossed out, he plays 2 positions well, is not enough of a warrant. That is a statement of the obvious. I think it's far better to say he does something better than Babe Ruth. And if he does something better than Babe Ruth, he should be considered an all time great. That, I think, gives us enough of a warrant so that we can add one more at the bottom and just keep moving on. And on this slide, I think I tried to keep the blue, red, green color coding that's in the original. Don't color code your final copy. Couple things worth repeating. Actually, one thing worth repeating. Warrants answer the questions: how exactly do I get from the data to the claim? To back up to that previous sentence, Ohtani is great. I've got two pieces of data. The MVP, actually three pieces. He won MVP in 2021. During 2022, he had the great season where he won the 10 games as a pitcher, hit the 30 home runs. The warrant has to explain why that means he's a great player. What's the context for that? A non-baseball fan might believe anybody and everybody does that. A person needs to explain it so that the non-baseball fan understands what's going on. Finally, wrap up the thing. It's usually the last sentence of the body paragraph. When I talked about the thesis, I talked about expectations. I think there's always an expectation that as you go through the points you're going to make in a paper, you wrap each one up before you go to the next one. Sums up your main idea. Try to avoid repeating keywords. Give your reader the sense of completion. This is done. Now we're moving on. Have a concluding sentence, or here's the example. Ohtani has cemented himself as one of baseball's greats. He won 10 games as a pitcher. He won an MVP. He's hit 30 home runs in the same season he won 10 games as a pitcher. Babe Ruth didn't do that. That means he's a great player. He's one of baseball's greats. I've cemented the two things. Rearrange the wording a little bit. We can go from there. This wraps it up. For the summary response, especially in the response, you're making a claim. Green did something exceptionally well. Green did something exceptionally poorly. These were three great things that Green did. When you're finished with that, make sure that you look through. Have you given your reasons? Have you given data to support your reasons? And have you explained how the data gets you back to the claims, gets you back to your reasons for saying Green was great or Green was terrible? Hope everyone has a good day, and I hope to see you all in the next class period.